Recently, I've been seeing some speed draw videos and I thought I could somehow incorporate that to the videos I've been making. So today, I'm going to be reading Karen Reddit stories while drawing. Before I did this video, I decided I would practice on speed draw because I haven't been on it in ages. I actually hate how the first drawing in this video turned out. But oh wow, we had to go with it. So the first one says, when I worked at the Home Depot, a Karen told me that she didn't want any black men to install her flooring. I was in charge of arranging her order and told her that we don't select which individuals exactly will install her floor and that she'll get who she gets. She proceeds to have a fit about it, demands white installers, and asks to speak to my manager. I'm glad she did, because my manager's name was Dwayne and he was a real big black dude. Turns out she didn't want to speak to the manager. When I worked at a bakery, Karen bought a cupcake and ate half of it. Karen then asked if she could return her half-eaten chocolate cupcake. Not because she didn't like it, but because she wanted to exchange it for half of a vanilla cupcake. Something less... don't know how to say that word. Like most bakeries, we did not sell cupcakes by the half. She became offended when I asked if she wanted to purchase a vanilla cupcake. Doctor here. I used to work in a public night shift service, kinda like an emergency room but for non-emergencies, to keep the hospitals clear of white codes, so anything from a fever to a sore throat to prescriptions for urgent treatments. And a Karen walks in at 3 a.m. asking for a prescription for hypertension drugs, which isn't unusual as old people more often than not, well, she looked 55, sometimes don't notice they're running low. Anyway, the law, not a rule, not my decision, the law states that this service can only write prescriptions for potentially life-threatening conditions, drugs for maximum of 72 hours coverage. So if you take one pill a day, I can only prescribe you a single blister. Here we don't have bottles, but blisters. And while I'm writing the prescription, Karen casually mentions that she was an insomniac, and while cleaning the medicine cabinet, she realized she was down to her last full blister. My pen stops. I ask her to repeat, full blister. Yeah. So I take the prescription, tear it in half, then I throw it in the bin, explaining to her the law. She gets mad, starts yelling, and threatens to call the cop. Go ahead. Cops came and she triumphantly announces that I'm refusing to treat her. I explain the situation and they ask her if that's true that she had a full blister. And she, of course, being a Karen who is always right no matter what, confirms it. The cops look at her, still with a look of triumph, waiting for them to arrest me. Then at me, then ask her to politely leave, as I'm in the right. She's livid. The day after, my boss called me and cracked up because she went there during the day to talk to the manager, and she, my boss, told her the exact same thing. Never saw her again in there, weirdly enough. When I was working retail, this one woman had a big bag of coupons. Most of them were unusable because they were either expired or they were duplicates. She berated me because the system was rejecting most of her coupons. She called me stupid amongst other names, telling me I wasn't doing it right. Then, as a typical Karen would, she asked to speak with my manager. My manager came and asked what the problem was. The woman ranted about how incompetent I was because I didn't know how to scan a coupon. My manager looked at the coupons and the coupons were the problem, not me. My manager told off the customer for being disrespectful and told the customer to leave the store. I hated working there, but I'm so grateful that I had managers that totally didn't go by the customer is always right rule and weren't afraid to stand up for their employees. That was just one of many incidents. When I worked at a popular arcade chain, I had Karen absolutely berating me because I wouldn't give her kid a prize they didn't win. So she wanted a manager, and when my manager comes over, she straight-faced this woman whole rant until Karen goes, whatever happened to the customer's always right. And my manager leans in a little close and goes, we don't have customers here, we have guests. Customers are always right, guests aren't. Goodbye, and waved a security guard over to escort Karen out. Best day of work ever. I was at the park with my daughter, who was 3 at the time. Her and a couple of other kids started to play together. She attempted to use the monkey bars because she's a very adventurous child. About midway through, she fell. I didn't do anything because she's fallen before and I want her to learn to get back up on her own and not be scared to try again. Anyway, one of the boys was about to get on the monkey bars too until I heard a woman run toward him screaming to stop. She picked him up and looked at my daughter, told her it wasn't smart of her to go on the monkey bars on her own if she wasn't fully ready because then others might get that same idea. That's when I got up and went to my daughter's defense, sternly told the woman to not speak to her that way and it's no fault of hers that she wasn't scared to try something new. She took her kid and left. She'd came up to my register and asked for the price of a protein bar. Every item in the store had a physical price tag because we didn't have scanners at the register. I took it from her, flipped it over and let her know it was $2.49 before tax. She asked me how much the case would be. Normally we did discounts for cases, but they had to be ordered ahead of time, so I started explaining we couldn't do discounts unless... She caught me off aggressively and hissed, "I didn't ask for a discount." So I typed in $2.49 times by 12, added tax and told her the final price. She stared me down for a few minutes before asking to get my manager. Once my manager arrived, she spent literally 10 minutes tearing into me, describing me as the least helpful person ever, talking about my bad attitude and complaining about how awful and rude I was, etc, etc. I was working nearly full-time, 35.5 hours per week, and commuting to a school over an hour away 4 days a week. This lady took the time out of her day to break me down to the point I started crying. Thanks, Karen, I still remember you. Hope you enjoyed your protein bar. The next one's captioned, "How dare the bank proactively protect my money?" Seeking information about bank practices, I went to pay a bill electronically and the bill was for $3,200. The money was in my account. Webster refused to allow the transaction due to it being over $2,500. Webster informed me I need the permission to spend over $2,500. Their excuse/explanation was, "It's for your protection. Cards can be stolen. We just want to make sure the transaction is legitimate." Let that sink in. At Webster, one needs permission from Webster to spend one's money. If the payment is over $2,500. I worked hard for my money. I don't require Webster Bank's approval to spend it. Cards/info can be stolen virtually anywhere now, so how is withholding my money protecting me? It now looks like I can't afford to pay my bills. I used a credit card, but there's interest that will have to be paid if I don't pay it off right away. If Webster really cared about fraud protection, they would contact me. Are you trying to pay $3,200? Just checking to make sure it's you. That would be protecting my money, and it would also be appreciated. My question is, do other banks do this? How is it not fraud? I'm in disbelief that it is legal for a bank to refuse to pay a bill when the money is in the account. OP said, "I actually happened to walk into the bank as the situation was unfolding in real life. Lady was chewing out the bank teller for a policy he doesn't control. He handled it like a pro though, explained the problem, tried to resolve it for her and got her out of there pretty quickly. I guess she wasn't satisfied because I came across this post on our town Facebook chat the following day." The next one's captioned, "It's your fault I drove 30 minutes to this location." I drove 30 minutes to this location on my birthday, expecting to grab my free bundler and finish my celebrations on a good note. I arrived at 7:50 p.m, 10 minutes before their posted 8 p.m. closing time. After sitting in a car briefly, I went to the door and found it already locked. If the store advertises that it's closed at 8 p.m, the door should not be locked early. As I stood there, an employee noticed me and came to the door, only to tell me that they were no longer serving customers. I even explained that I just needed to pick up my birthday bundle, which would have taken no more than a couple of minutes. It was especially disappointing given the occasion and the fact that I drove 30 minutes for what should have been a quick visit. If the store plans to stop serving customers before the posted closing time, the hours should be updated accordingly. Locking the doors early and turning customers away is frustrating and misleading. This next one's a review of a family-run local Chinese takeaway. I ordered a takeaway on Wednesday evening for my wife and I. Very disappointed. After spending our usual £35, we found our chicken balls and salt and pepper chips completely overcooked, and the chicken curry contained so much onion and carrots there was hardly any sauce. Called them to say what we had, only received an apology. Called back the next evening to ask if they would replace the chicken balls and salt and pepper chips, and only asked for curry sauce. Even offered to bring down the food we couldn't eat, only to be informed they would only replace one item. Told them to stick it up their backside, then proceeded to dump the uneaten food on the counter in front of waiting customers. The only thing that was satisfying. The thing that baffled me about that one is that they called the next evening asking to replace food. Anyways, if you got this far in the video, thank you for watching, and I'll put all the artworks I did on the screen right now. And I guess I'll see you in the next video.